How every famous cartel boss died. Number 8. Pablo Escobar. What if the world's most hunted drug lord ended his life running across rooftops? One of the most infamous cartel endings in history belongs to Pablo Escobar, leader of the Medellin Cartel. During the height of his power, Escobar controlled enormous cocaine trafficking operations and became one of the richest and most feared criminals in the world. His influence spread through bribery, violence, bombings, kidnappings, and assassinations that shook Colombia for years. Cities lived under fear. Politicians, police, judges, and journalists became targets. But eventually, pressure closed in from multiple directions. Colombian authorities intensified operations. Special search units pursued him relentlessly. Rival criminal groups also turned against him. Escobar spent long periods hiding while constantly moving between safe locations to avoid detection. In 1993, authorities tracked him to a neighborhood in Medellin after monitoring communications. A confrontation followed. Escobar attempted to escape across rooftops during the shootout. He was killed during the operation, ending one of the largest manhunts in criminal history. Debate and conspiracy theories later surrounded details of the final shot, but the broader outcome remained clear. The empire collapsed with him. What makes his death so striking is contrast. A man who once controlled vast wealth and terrified a nation ended cornered, exposed, and fleeing above ordinary homes. No palace, no army protecting him. Just rooftops, gunfire, and the end of a violent era. Number 7. Amado Carrillo Fuentes. What if one of the world's most powerful traffickers died trying to become someone else? One of the strangest cartel endings ever belongs to Amado Carrillo Fuentes, leader of the Juarez Cartel. Known as the Lord of the Skies, he became famous for using fleets of aircraft to transport narcotics on a massive scale. At the height of his power, he controlled enormous smuggling operations and accumulated extraordinary wealth, but increasing law enforcement pressure made survival harder, as authorities were closing in. His face had become internationally recognized. So, according to widely reported accounts, Carrillo sought a drastic solution. Plastic surgery intended to alter his appearance and help him evade capture. In 1997, he underwent procedures at a hospital in Mexico City. But something went wrong. Reports stated he died during or shortly after the operation. With complications linked to the surgery and sedation process, the case immediately exploded into controversy. Rumors spread everywhere. Some believed he truly died. Others suspected a staged death designed to help him disappear permanently. The mystery deepened further when doctors connected to the surgery were later found dead under suspicious circumstances. What makes this ending so disturbing is irony. A man who survived cartel wars, trafficking networks, and massive criminal investigations may have died not in a firefight, but on an operating table while trying to erase his own identity. No dramatic final battle, no public showdown, just a secret attempt to vanish, and a death that still fuels speculation decades later. Number 6. Griselda Blanco. What if one of the most feared figures in the drug trade died in the same style of violence she helped popularize? One of the most infamous cartel-related endings belongs to Griselda Blanco, a major cocaine trafficker linked to violent criminal operations between Medellin and the United States. Sometimes called the Black Widow, or godmother of cocaine, Blanco became notorious for ruthless tactics, assassination orders, and involvement in the brutal expansion of narcotic trafficking during the late 20th century. Authorities connected her organization to numerous killings. Her name became associated with fear, intimidation, and organized violence. After years of criminal activity, imprisonment, and eventual deportation back to Colombia, Blanco lived more quietly in later life compared with her earlier years of power. But her story did not end peacefully. In 2012, while leaving a butcher shop in Medellin, she was attacked by motorcycle gunmen and shot to death in broad daylight. The killing shocked many observers because of the method. Motorcycle assassinations had long been associated with cartel-style executions in Colombia, and Blanco herself had reportedly used similar tactics during her criminal career. That parallel became the defining image of her death. What makes this ending so disturbing is symmetry. A life built around violence ending through the same cycle of violence. No courtroom finale. No retirement hidden from the world. Just a sudden public attack on an ordinary street. Her death became symbolic of the criminal world she helped shape. Fast, public, unforgiving. a powerful figure who once inspired fear across entire networks. Reduced to another victim of the same system. Number 5. Arturo Beltran Leyva. What if a cartel leader's final hours turned into a battlefield inside a city? One of the deadliest cartel endings in modern Mexican history belongs to Arturo Beltran Leyva, leader of the Beltran Leyva cartel. Once connected to larger trafficking networks, the organizations became deeply involved in violent conflicts with rivals and authorities. Beltran Leyva himself earned a reputation as one of the most feared figures in organized crime during the height of Mexico's cartel wars. By 2009, security forces were aggressively targeting high-ranking cartel leadership. Intelligence operations eventually traced Beltran Leyva to an apartment complex in Cuernavaca. What followed was not a quiet arrest attempt. It became a massive armed confrontation. Mexican Marines surrounded the area and a prolonged firefight erupted. Gunfire echoed through the complex for hours as heavily armed men exchanged shots with security forces. Explosions and automatic weapons fire transformed the operation into an urban combat scene. By the end of the raid, Beltran Leyva was dead along with several associates. The operation became one of the most high-profile cartel takedowns of its era. What makes this ending disturbing is intensity, not a hidden assassination, not a secret disappearance, an open military-style clash inside a populated city. The scale of force reflected how powerful and dangerous cartel organizations had become. His death also triggered retaliation fears and further violence across criminal networks afterward. A cartel empire cornered in an apartment tower, ending in smoke, gunfire, and a battle visible to the public. Number 4. Nazario Moreno Gonzalez. What if a cartel boss was reported dead, yet people kept believing he was still alive? One of the strangest endings in cartel history belongs to Nazario Moreno Gonzalez, founder and spiritual figure linked to La Familia Michoacana, and later associated with the Knights Templar cartel. Unlike many cartel leaders known mainly for trafficking, Moreno cultivated an almost cult-like image around himself. Reports described him mixing criminal operations with religious language, ideological messaging, and self-styled moral codes. That unusual reputation made his story even stranger after authorities announced he had been killed in 2010 during clashes in Michoacán. At the time, officials said he died during a firefight. But there was a major problem. No body was recovered. Without physical confirmation, rumors exploded. Some believed he escaped. Others claimed he continued secretly directing operations. Stories spread that followers still viewed him as alive or spiritually protected. For years, uncertainty surrounded his fate. Then in 2014, Mexican authorities announced another operation had located him again. This time, after a confrontation, officials recovered and identified the body. The second announcement shocked many people because it suggested the earlier death reports had been wrong. What makes this ending disturbing is confusion between myth and reality, a criminal leader becoming almost legendary among followers. A dead man possibly continuing operations for years, and a final confirmation arriving long after the world thought the story ended. His case showed how cartel figures can become more than fugitives. They can become symbols powerful enough to survive even their own reported deaths. Number 3. Heriberto Lazcano. What if a cartel boss died in a gun battle, and then his body vanished? One of the weirdest endings in cartel history belongs to Heriberto Lazcano, founder of the Los Zetas. Before entering organized crime, Lazcano had military training, which helped shape Los Zetas into one of the most heavily armed and feared cartel groups in Mexico. The organization became notorious for extreme violence, intimidation tactics, and brutal conflicts with rivals and authorities. For years, Lazcano remained one of the country's most wanted fugitives. In 2012, Mexican Marines tracked him to a small town in Coahuila. A violent confrontation followed. According to reports, Lazcano was killed during the firefight alongside another man. Authorities initially appeared to have achieved a major victory. But then the story became bizarre. The bodies were transported to a funeral home while officials prepared identification procedures. Before those processes were fully completed, armed men reportedly entered and stole Lazcano's body. The corpse disappeared. That shocking twist fueled endless rumors and conspiracy theories. Some wondered whether supporters wanted to prevent public display or forensic confirmation. Others questioned whether the theft would strengthen myths that he survived. Even after official identification through fingerprints and other evidence, the missing body became the lasting image attached to his death. What makes this ending so disturbing is the atmosphere around it. A feared cartel leader dies, then vanishes from the morgue like something from crime fiction. No final burial known publicly, no closure visible to the world. Just another layer of mystery added to cartel legend. Number 2. Ramón Arellano Félix. What if one of the world's most wanted cartel bosses was finally stopped during an ordinary police encounter? One of the most violent cartel endings belongs to Ramón Arellano Félix, a leading figure of the Tijuana Cartel. During the height of cartel conflict in Mexico, the organization became notorious for trafficking routes, assassinations, and fierce battles with rivals. Ramón himself developed a reputation for extreme violence and was linked to numerous criminal operations. For years, authorities pursued him as a major fugitive while the cartel fought to maintain influence. By 2002, pressure from both law enforcement and rival organizations had intensified. That year, Ramón traveled to Mazatlan. According to reports, events escalated during an encounter involving police officers. A shootout erupted. Gunfire ended the confrontation, and Ramón Arellano Félix was killed. The death marked a major turning point because the Arellano Félix organization had long been considered one of the most powerful criminal groups in the region. What makes this ending disturbing is unpredictability. A man who survived cartel wars, assassinations, and years as an international fugitive did not fall in a giant military siege or dramatic final escape. Instead, his story ended suddenly during a confrontation on city streets. No empire lasts forever in organized crime. Alliances shift, enemies multiply, pressure builds constantly. His death also reflected the era's instability, where even top cartel figures moved through a world of non-stop danger. A feared boss living for years under pursuit, finally meeting the moment he could not escape. Number 1. Antonio Cárdenas Guillén. What if an attempt to capture a cartel boss turned an entire city into a war zone? One of the most explosive cartel endings in modern history belongs to Antonio Cárdenas Guillén, also known as Tony Tormenta, a leader within the Gulf Cartel. By the late 2000s, violent conflict between cartels and Mexican security forces had intensified dramatically. Cities near trafficking routes often became battlegrounds as organizations fought rivals and resisted government operations. In 2010, authorities launched a major operation in Matamoros, near the U.S. border. What followed was chaos on a massive scale. Gunmen flooded streets, barricades appeared across the city, convoys exchanged heavy fire with military forces. Residents became trapped indoors, while automatic weapons fire echoed through neighborhoods. The confrontation reportedly lasted for hours and involved large numbers of armed fighters. By the end of the battle, Antonio Cárdenas Guillén had been killed. But the scale of violence shocked observers far beyond the region. This was not a hidden criminal dispute. It unfolded openly across an urban environment with civilians nearby. What makes this ending especially disturbing is militarization. Cartel conflict had evolved far beyond isolated smuggling operations. Armored vehicles, coordinated gunmen, and citywide firefights made some confrontations resemble combat zones. His death symbolized that transformation. A cartel leader surrounded not by secrecy, but by open warfare in the streets, an empire built through organized violence, ending in one of the most intense clashes of the cartel era. Which cartel boss had the craziest ending? Comment below. Like if you enjoyed this list. Subscribe for more insane videos like this. See you in the next one.